it is widely accepted that investing in large infrastructure brings economic development. However, it is less known that in low and middle income countries, there is a high prevalence of infrastructure projects that are started but are not completed. So in my job market paper, I evaluate the effects of unfinished infrastructure, which are known as white elephants. And I particularly focus on the effect of unfinished sewerage infrastructure projects on infant mortality and the mortality of children under the age of 5 in Peru. And for this, I compile several sources of administrative data. I rely on budgetary reports and timing of expenditure to identify the number of unfinished projects in a given district and year. And I measure infant mortality and under 5 mortality relying on vital statistics by cause of death, as well as population forecast. And I use several sources in order to prove the mechanisms. Given the endogeneity on project placement, I use an instrumental variable strategy, exploiting the fact that a combination of geographical features makes some districts in Peru more technically suitable for low-cost sewerage projects. So I predict how sewerage diffusion would have taken place had project placement been based only on cost considerations. Exploiting this instrument, I'm able to estimate that an additional unfinished project increased mortality by 6% over baseline levels. And you might be wondering, how can an unfinished project be so detrimental for the health of children? Well, what I find is that the increase is driven by the waterborne diseases as well as accidents, which cause the mortality. However, I find no effect on other causes unrelated to pathogenic infection or external hazards. I also find that given that in order to install sewerage pipes, there is a need for water cuts, I find that there's an increase in the prevalence of the use of unsafe sources of water, given that pipe water has been cut, as well as deterioration of sanitation practices. Now, in order to disentangle the effects between unfinished projects and those completed, even though the prevalence of completed projects is very low, what I find is the fact that, well, I rely on an instrumental variable that it's a combination of the geographic allocation of projects as well as the interaction between the geographic characteristics of districts with the partisan alignment between the local mayor and the central government. And basically what I find is that the increase in mortality is driven by unfinished projects, while there is no effect on mortality from those projects that are completed. And this is explained by the fact that in the short run, households are not necessarily connecting directly to the public good provided. So in summary, well, the implications of my findings are definitely by no means that sewerage projects should not be completed, by the fact that in order to understand the whole cost-benefit of these large infrastructure projects, it is necessary to look at the implementation phase and take into consideration the social costs. And once projects are started, we also need to make sure that other policies are put in place to complement and mitigate any negative effects from projects that are underway or what I define as unfinished, those abandoned as well as delayed. And also, it is necessary to think of how to run the last mile. Basically, once the infrastructure is completed, we need to generate that demand so that the users adopt it. Thank you very much.